Hi, Rupert.
Hi.
My question is more during the day, when you just have some activities. I think after reading Nisargadatta, I was always, I don't know if focusing is the right word, but being in the I am. And I felt like sometimes I was kind of cut off from the attention of the required attention for the activity. So, how do you devise this just going into like pure being? And then, I was maybe doing more like particular activities, and then I was kind of cutting off. Or sometimes there was something that should be taking care of attention external from me, and I don't, because I'm in being, I kind of like forget about it or something like that.
Yes, there may be times during your day when you decide that you're not going to pay attention to the objective content of experience. That is either what is going on outside of you in the world or what is taking place inside of you in terms of thoughts and feelings. You decide you're only going to give attention to yourself. You're only going to be with yourself or be knowingly yourself. That is called self-inquiry or prayer or meditation. But it's not recommended that you spend all your time resting knowingly in yourself. It is appropriate to give your attention to what is taking place in the world, to give your attention to activities and relationships. And then you seem to turn your attention away from yourself towards those objects. Of course, in time, so to begin with, there is this feeling of back and forth. Either I'm giving my attention to activities and relationships, or I'm resting my attention in its source, my being. But then in time, you are able to go out into the world without losing contact with your being. You take yourself with you wherever you go, so to speak. You may still then choose to spend some time during the day at home. You sit down on the sofa or the floor or wherever, and you close your eyes, and you may still rest your attention in your being. But that does not imply that meditation begins when you sit down on your sofa and close your eyes. And meditation, true meditation, never begins or ends, because meditation is what you are, not what you do. So although you may still go home, sit down, close your eyes and rest your attention in your being, then when you're called through desire or circumstance to go back out into the world, you do so, but your being remains present in the background of your experience. You don't lose touch with it. So in that case, the distinction between meditation and everyday life begins to blur until at some point there's a kind of your life is it becomes homogeneous. You're always or almost always in touch with your being, whether you are resting your attention in its source, your being, or whether you are giving your attention to objects, activities, relationships.
How would you, like, I don't know if it's a decision, but like, for example, if you're walking, instead of saying like I am in your head and just like then feeling that, or more like paying attention to your feet on the floor, like more like mindfulness walking or something like that, how would you, I mean, I guess it's maybe like concentration, like we talked the other day, it's not very advised. And how do you see, this distinguishment?
When you're walking, I don't recommend that you pay exclusive attention to your sensations of your feet on the ground. I mean, there are so many more interesting things to give your attention to. I mean, it's so boring to give your attention to the sensations of your feet on the ground. You might be walking with your friend and having an interesting conversation. You may be perceiving the world and listening to things. You may be thinking about something. Your thoughts may be very interesting. Or you may be walking down the road, and the lens of your attention may be on soft focus, in which case you won't be giving your attention to any particular aspect of your experience. Your attention will be more, you'll still be aware of whatever it is you're experiencing, but it'll be a kind of global attention, not a focused attention. And your own being may be more prominent in your experience than your perception of the world. So the analogy would be, you're watching a movie, but you're seeing the screen before you're watching the movie. Sometimes you're watching the movie to the exclusion of seeing the screen. Sometimes you see both together. And sometimes you can look at the screen barely registering what's happening in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's why sometimes I do that, and then like there's someone talking and I don't pay too much attention to what he's saying, for example.
That's fine, or your attention could rest just very lightly on what was being said. And then if something interesting was being said, then you turn up the volume and you pay attention. That's really, after I had been with Francis for a few years, that's really how I was during meetings. To begin with, I was like you in the front row, putting my hand up every time. But after a few years, I was just sitting in the back. Most people probably felt that I was sleeping. I wasn't sleeping, but much of the time I was just resting. I wasn't excluding anything, I wasn't rejecting anything, but I was on soft focus.
On the voice of what he was talking about.
What he was talking about, what anybody else was talking about, what was going on, the sensations in my body, whatever. It was all on soft focus. But yes, he was talking most of the time. But the volume was turned right down. So it wasn't that I wasn't listening, but I was listening with the lightest degree of attention. And then if he said something that was a new angle or shed new light on something that or brought new understanding to a situation, then the volume went up straight away. I was right there. And then the volume would go down again. So that's just a specific example. But you could do that when you're walking down the street or at any moment of experience. But don't feel in your earnestness to explore your experience, don't feel that it's wrong to give your attention to the objective content of your experience. It's not. Feel free to go into activities and relationships. They are not at odds with this understanding. It's not either the world or yourself.
Maybe last question. How did you manage, like when you were young, I guess you were trying to learn, to, maybe learning a lot but not being lost in the learning? Just like trying to get more and more and more and more, and the learning say you have to be, but then you try to learn.
When you say learning, are you talking about this subject matter or some subject that you're studying at university or?
Yeah, more like this subject matter, like, pounding books of Ramana and Maharshi, kind of like, you learn.
You mean reading books about this?
Yes.
Well, as long as you choose the right books to read, that's a big if. But as long as you're reading the right books, then it's perfectly okay to get lost in them, because all they will be doing will be directing you towards the reality or the heart of your experience. So if you read the right books, you will not be getting lost in the books, you'll be getting lost in yourself. And so you must read the right books.
So what are your 3 most recommended books? Outside of
I
your
asked
books.
for that. My 3 most recommended books.
The one you get very lost in it.
Well, different people would get a different answer to that question, but as it's you that's asking the question, well, it would have to be something of Ramana Maharshi, Guru Kovai Vachali. It's probably the best one.
Guru.
What's it called? Guru Kovai Vachali, I think. Vichali. Is it? Yeah, yeah. Sure. That would be good to get lost in that. Balyānī, know thyself.
By Ramana Maharshi?
Balyānī, Balyānī was, nobody knows much about him. He was a contemporary of Ibn Arabi. It's a Sufi. It's the absolute height of the Sufi teaching. It's called Know Thyself, an explanation of the oneness of being. I'm quoting it all the time. I'm sure you've heard me quote it. It's a very small book, but so that's the second book I'd recommend. And do you know Atmananda Krishna Menon?
Yeah, the name, yeah.
Have you read any of his books?
No.
Well, he only wrote, actually himself, he wrote two books, one called Atma Darshan and the other called Atma Nirvriti. And they're very difficult to get hold of, so you might find one on eBay or somewhere. But one of his students, Nitya Tripta, I think, wrote down a lot of his answers during his meetings, and they were published in a quite a large volume called Spiritual Discourses. And they're not his direct words, but they're very close. If you compare the content with Atma Darshan and Atma Nirvriti, they're very close, and it really gives you the essence of Krishna Menon's teaching. So I would recommend that. Spiritual. If you can get hold of his two books, they're very succinct, they're beautiful, but he doesn't go into a lot of explanation. So I would recommend Atma, the Spiritual Discourses, because he goes in, he elaborates his answers more. He's got a very unique way of speaking and teaching. He called it high reasoning, and it's a very unique form of reasoning that's characteristic of him, but I would recommend that.
Thank you.
It's published in 3 volumes now.
Sorry, and it's, yes, you if you're lucky you might find an original, but it's Non-Duality Press published it in three small ones. I have an original first edition, and it was given to me. I'm just telling you a story now. It was just given to me in a beautiful circumstance. I was giving a meeting in Berkeley, in the Bay Area. It was right in the very, very early days, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And when I arrived in the meeting, there was this man sitting on the bench. Then I noticed him, and he had a box next to him, and immediately we noticed him. It was just there's nothing remarkable about him, but we noticed each other, and then we had the meeting. And after I came out of the meeting, he was standing there, and he had this box, and he just handed them to me and said, "Here, this is for you," and left. And I looked inside it, and there was the original first edition copies, not only of Atma Darshan and Atma Nirvriti, but also the Spiritual Discourses. And so I have these beautiful first edition copies of these books, which I treasure, and were given to me by this stranger. It was one of those kind of luminous meetings with a stranger. So, but you can find them in paperback.
Thank you.
Remind me the name of Ramana's book. Guru Kovai Vachali, or Guru Vachali Kovai.
Guru Vachaka Kovai.
Guru Vachaka Kovai, yeah.
It's also translated into English as the garland of Guru.
The garland of Guru sayings, but this new edition of it, the Guru Vachala Kovai, is a very nice edition, and it's quite big, it's quite thick, and it's a book. It'll last you the rest of your life. Anyway, so those are the 3 books for you.
Thank you.